During the whole day, we talked a lot about different industries. We had 5 panels, and now this is the final panel. And I think now it's time to talk about the most important component in an economy, the most crucial component, what is us, the human capital. And truth be told, human capital is something valuable, but I'm not yet a valuable human capital. Why this? Because I'm still in my training, I'm still in my education phase, so I'm not yet at this level. My name is Heiko, I'm a SEMS exchange student here at FGV, and I'm originally from ESADE Business School in Spain. But as I said, I'm not yet the valuable human capital, but hopefully soon from now I will be. But it is my great pleasure to have now with us 4 of the finest examples of human capital in the human resource area. And I would like to introduce our guests to all of you. Our first guest is Alfredo Assunção. He is the CEO of FESA, which is a global executive search company. He is also an economist, and he is, that's the best, an alumni of FGV. And let's talk a little bit about human capital already, It's about competence. And I read through his CV and has 4 really interesting competences, He's a writer, he's a poet, he's a musician, and he's a composer. So, welcome to you, Alfredo.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here.
Also, we have here Jorge Maluf. And actually, you need to know, they're close competitors because he's working for Korn Ferry, another executive search company. But we talked before for half an hour. They like each other. They're not strong competition, The interesting thing about George is he did something cool. He did studies in a bachelor as an engineer, and then his engineer studies were followed by a master's in management and then a PhD in management. So what he will learn from that? It's another interesting learning for human capital. He diversified his knowledge. So we had competence, diversified knowledge, so we need something else. And therefore, I would like to introduce to you Marco Ferreira. He is the director of human resources at Banco Santander, and you all know Banco Santander, one of the largest banks in the world, one of the largest banks in Latin America. And you know what? He shows us something else about human capital. He's a mobile person. He worked in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. He worked in Chicago, in the US. So great to have you here. So once again, competences, knowledge, mobility, these are the hard facts, But what else do we know? What else do we need in the 21st century? We need soft skills, personal attributes, characteristics of a person. And therefore, I said I'm still in my training phase. I have now 4 years of training. But still, Professor Cabrera is one of the most charming and one of the most supportive professors I met in the 4 years. He is a great expert on human capital, and I tell you why. He is kind of uniting the 2 worlds. He's uniting the corporate world, because he is the chairman and the vice chairman of Amro Eva Group, another global executive search company, and he's a professor at FGV. And by uniting these 2 worlds, corporate and academic, I would now like to give the word to you, so you can give us a brief introduction to the human capital and tell us a bit more about just what I told you, hard facts and soft facts. What else do we need to know, Professor?
Thank you. You probably noticed that he said brief. It was a message for the professor. So what I would like you to think with me is why it's so important to talk about human capital. What is the logical, or what's the rationale behind this? And I would like to say that if you just think until the end of the 19th century, the focus of the economy was land acquisition and possession by war or by invasions, and the key players in the world were the countries. So this is what you have learned about the history. The country is growing by possessing more and more land. And when you jump to the 20th century, the key players in the 20th centuries were the corporations. And what's happening? It was the free market and the growth of the capitalism. But when you jump to the 21st century, the key players are the citizens. It's no more the countries, no more the corporations, but it's each of you are the key players. Each of you are changing the world. Each of you are representing the more important asset in this competitive world. And what is the focus now is human capital and entrepreneurship. That's why this panel is the last one, because you notice that during all the day we discuss it about sustainability, about economics, about finance, about infrastructure. But who is doing this in the world? Who is taking care of the world? Who is in charge now? Who is in charge now are the citizens. And it's interesting. If you do remember what happened this year, for the first time, every year, the magazine Time used to choose the person of the year. This year, for the first time, was not a recognized person, was only an ordinary citizen from Arabia, from this world that is changing so fast because of the citizens. And this is the sign for you to understand that this is the century of the human capital. And jumping to Brazil and to the Brazilian scenario, what are the important issues that we have to discuss, and what are the important issues that we have to address here with our panelists to help the people around the world that are paying attention to us, that are watching us, to understand what's happening in this marvelous country? First, you have the demographic bonus. Brazil is fortunate to have this distribution of population in aging that is fantastic for the future, because we do have much more people working than the average countries. Second is our difficulties, because we have a lack of engineers and scientists. On the other hand, we are facing for the first time a very interesting moment between full employment and the lack of productivity. We do have in our school a problem of lack of human resources specialists. I must say that in this business school, I am always concerned about the number of young people that love to discuss about this finance system, love to discuss about financial services. But as you notice, we have a huge lack of management in infrastructure, in sustainability. And with the fall of the interest rate, this marvelous world of the financial services is not going to be the only place that is going to offer a good job. The end of this financial area in Brazil is now. We are starting a different era in our not only in our consumer world, but in our labor world. And what is very important to see is that the country is offering a lot of opportunities for foreign students that wants to come here, understand our country, and to work here, and to help us to build up this country for the future. I think that we have an excellent opportunity now in our panel to discuss how we can manage the Brazilian growth, how we can really help the country to reach the point of growth, of quality of living that all the Brazilians are aiming for. So thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to be in this panel, and I'm aiming high for this discussion. And most of my thoughts are to the students that are now understanding and trying to cope with the Brazilians about how to manage our future. Thank you.
And I think there's nothing to add from my side to this excellent introduction. Brief, perfect, that's what I liked a lot. And I just want to tell you once again, like, we want to structure this debate, if all of you agree, into 3 topics. It was already introduced by the professor, but just we would like to start up with the risk and opportunities that we see for Brazil and the human capital development. And then I think it's time to move on to a topic like, especially for our international audience, for the international students, talking about what are your opportunities here that you can, especially as you're from executive search, research companies and from human resources. Tell us really what the students need to have to succeed and what's the kind of skills they need to be a part of this puzzle of success, you know? And then I think go on to Brazil and take a look on the future. What still needs to be done? We talked about something. Maybe there's something about education that needs to be changed, about talent generation in Brazil that needs to be changed. So these are the 3 topics: risk and opportunities, then about the international student, and then about the future. And I think the best would be, without asking any more too specific questions, maybe all of you could have a brief opening statement. And maybe Alfredo, would you like to start on risk and opportunities?
Well, that's a wonderful matter. Cabrera, congratulations. You gave a very good overview of what we're facing. Usually say that what the economy needs, good talent. What is the good talent? That one who makes him or herself necessary. Listen to me. I'm not saying that you have to have a PhD degree or something like that. You need to be necessary for the corporate world to get you, to need you. Whenever you are needed, you are a talent. If you are not needed, you are going to be fired. This is what happened in the corporate world. It doesn't matter if you have a master's degree or whatever. I'm not against, I know that you have to start very hard, but at the same time you need to work. You need to get experience. Otherwise, you're going to sit in front of me, okay, and I have nothing to offer to you, you know? So this is very tough to say, but that's the reality, you know? If you have a lot of unemployment in Europe nowadays, what happened to those countries? They loved to practice welfareism, assistantialism. So never, never wait for a government to take care of you. You take care of yourself. This is what I have to say just to start the conversation.
Thank you. Jorge, do you agree with your competitor?
Yes. No, I think the words from Alfredo are quite wise. I would add some aspects to this, and I probably will actually shift more to the opportunities. Mm-hmm. I think we have currently in Brazil a strong, a huge opportunity for people who is able to be needed. that is, the opportunity to come, in a country that is, facing very interesting opportunities in several countries, in several dimensions, several directions, in a market that is allowing people to develop very fast careers, and in a market that is facing a shortage of such talent. And we don't need only, I would say, headcount. We need actually, a set of competencies that people has to bring, has to develop in order to face the challenges that the companies and the country now is facing. Is not only about knowledge, is more related the way you adapt yourself to different situations. We are facing today a changing world. What you say today in 3 or 4, maybe 10 years will be obsolete. What we learn in terms of how we work will be actually outdated in 3-4 years. The management processes will change. The relationships are changing. So we need people who is able to reinvent themselves. And I think this is a challenge. And Brazil is known by having as a very creative people. But we need these people to actually be able to redirect this creativeness in terms of being more productive, being more effective in the labor work. Saying that, I would say also that today, probably we talked about infrastructure. Probably you discussed the bottlenecks of the country. Maybe human capital or people would be the most important bottleneck that we will face in the next years. We are currently actually growing very, the growth were quite disappointing this year, and we are already facing a full employment situation. I cannot actually see the country growing 6, 7, 8% a year, right, in this situation. We won't have enough people, enough talent actually to support such a growth. We need actually to complement our skills with international talent, with people from outside, other experiences. So we will be open to these people. We need them, and we will have also from our side to learn how to receive them, how to actually take the risk of hiring them and helping them to succeed among ourselves.
So now we heard about the theory basically from the headhunter's perspective. So now maybe Mark, you can give us an idea about the perspective of a Spanish multinational.
Yeah, okay. Well, for us here in Brazil, Santander is facing some challenges. One of our challenges is the innovation challenge, right? Because the market is changing a lot, so the interest rates is going down. So how we have done business so far, that's not a way that you're going to do in the next years. So you're going to have people that can somehow work with innovation and change things, change how we work together with our clients. So this is one thing, this is very, very important for us. Another thing, we just brought to Brazil 50 persons from all over the world, people from Colombia, from Portugal, from Spain, to work as a risk analyst here in Brazil. Yeah, I think you're going to face that thing more and more. But it's not an easy thing to do, because people, when come to Brazil, I think you know that, we need to learn how to deal with our culture here in Brazil. That's totally different than Europe, for example. Even from all other countries in Latin America. So it's something that we need to work and help people that are going to come to Brazil to how to deal with that kind of a challenge. So
I guess, yeah, about this topic we should talk later also in detail.
Yeah, okay.
About how you manage the new culture. But thanks a lot for the opening statement. I think now we want to make it a bit more difficult for our guests here. And let me give you the background. So I think we're now talking about super high level. But in Brazil, there is managers, there's cleaning ladies, there's medical doctors, and there is a waiter in a restaurant. So human capital has different dimensions. And you said you need talent from abroad. But maybe you could then also answer what industries need really the talent, and also how can we develop our talent inside of Brazil?
You know,
Alfredo.
something very interesting is that the economy is global. Okay, you don't have just that's the Brazilian economy, that's the European one. One depends on each other, and we have everything connected. So you see, in the same way that we need talent from outside, and talent again, I come back to my definition is that when you make yourself needed, okay, when you are a necessity, you are a talent. So in the same way that Brazil has a necessity for people from outside.
What people exactly?
Well, we talk, for instance, about engineer for the pre-salt, for instance, the kind of technology that we do not have. But in the same way, we export a lot of talent for all over the world. Nowadays, we have a number, and I'm going to give you that, 5 million Brazilians working outside Brazil. 5 million. What is that? From the blue collars, passing by the football players, until managers, directors, etc., all over the world. We have multinational companies. So what we have is an integration, okay, of labor force. Let's call it that, human capital, okay? So Brazil, we need here people who are going to perform in accordance with the necessity of the companies, okay? So this way, we bring people from outside in the same way that we export people. So there is this kind of thing, people walking and traveling and working all over the world. I used to say that the good executive, the good talent nowadays is that one who is ready to move, okay? Has the family in accordance with this approach, okay? You are not born anymore to stay in one city or one state, for instance, in Brazil. You have to be ready to move. So in the same way that we need people from outside, in the other countries, you need the Brazilian. The Brazilian executive is a wonderful one. Pay attention what I'm going to say now. We are not warrior. We have no problem with religion, with race. We have no terrorism here. So the Brazilian executive is very well demanded and highly demanded all over the world, because the Brazilian guy can work in wherever place in the world. It doesn't happen with the other nationalities, if I can say like that. See? So in the same way that we need people, so we need to understand that. Otherwise, we're going to say here that, well, Brazil don't have good people. We have wonderful people. We have people here to run this economy. Maybe we have a lack of something here and there, okay? And when I say, okay, the pre-salt, wonderful, but I have no pre-salt if I have no talent to extract that petroleum. You see? So I don't know if you can understand, but
I get it.
okay?
I just like, Professor Cabrera, the idea, we just heard that we export talent and we import talent, but still I think there's a delta, right? That we still need more talent here. And you're from the economic perspective, you educate the people, so you create talents basically. So, but still, what do you think, what industry really needs talents from Brazil? Or can we import all the talents?
No, we must divide the answer in two aspects that are very important. We have industries that are growing very fast in Brazil. And let's start with the agribusiness that is basically the strength of the country now is in the agribusiness. The second one is mining, that is growing. And the third one is construction in general, because we have this lack of infrastructure of 10 to 15 years that we have to surpass now with a very fast movement in constructing highways, railways, and all the infrastructure for the cities. So we do need people, technicians and managers for this. We are always making a mistake when we used to say that Brazil is demanding for engineers. We are demanding for engineers, but we are really demanding for managers for all those industries. And this is the problem. We don't have the talents enough for the technical and for the managerial challenge. That's why I think that we do need to, for a period of time, to import some managers from abroad and some technical people from abroad in the oil and gas industry, in the mining industry, and even in the biotechnology area.
I think this is a very interesting aspect, because what you were saying when you were talking about agribusiness, about mining, these are businesses that usually don't happen in Rio, in Sao Paulo, the business hubs, right? So maybe, Marco, you can tell us something about Santander, because Santander, I assume, is having your banks, your subsidiaries all around the country, like even in the Northeast, where only very little economic activity is happening. How do you recruit your people there, let's say your bank accountants over there? Is it easy to find people over there?
Yeah, it's not easy at all. The question here is that our education level here in Brazil is not enough yet, and it's not good enough for all the things that we have to have in Brazil. At the same time, our system is so different than Europe, for example, that people in a university, for example, want to work as in an internship. So it's a different. Our students here try to have experience very fast, different than Europe. That after 28 years old, 30 years old, gonna go to work in another company or so. Here in Brazil, have that kind of a system. So what we're trying to do here is try to identify the young people last year in a university, and trying to bring them to the bank, and help them to learn things from the bank. We don't have today for financial industry a kind of education that can help people to work in the banks.
So you're basically saying like Santander is kind of replacing the role as an educator, school,
somehow,
university.
Yeah, somehow, yeah. We have to have a lot of investments for learning in our bank right today.
But especially in the rural areas, like in the big cities.
In the big cities as well. Okay, it's the same thing, because we have to find people everywhere. I was talking to, I don't know if Georgie before. We have one trainee per day here for the bank to work in the commercial areas in the bank. But look, this is not an easy thing, because at the same time you have that challenge for innovation, people that can work with our clients and offer products and because our clients is much more demanding much more than before. Have a lot of people that is going to have the first account, but people that are demanding services that are totally different than before. So have to invest a lot in these people to help them to serve our clients. So what we do right now is trying to identify that the young person, and trying to hire them before then they going after before then the end of the program, the university program. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's good. And
May I add?
obviously,
That's very interesting. Okay, what you have talked to us. What's happened is that, okay, in the last century, for instance, the crisis used to come every 12 years. So the academic world had time to prepare the students for the corporate world. Nowadays we have 1.5 years. Every 1.5, every 2 years, we have a different crisis. So poor academic world, it's very tough to prepare the right people that the corporate world is needing. So you need to complement, okay, your knowledge by experiencing, okay, this corporate world. That's a kind of on-the-job training. So the trainee program, etc., that you used to have in the past. The great problem that we have in Brazil, and now we're talking about the future of this nation, is the lot of tax that we pay. You know that the payroll, for instance, for every 1,000 that you pay in salary, you pay another 1,000 for the government, and you receive nothing back. So something needs to be done here, okay? Together, the academic world, the corporate world, and the government. The government should direct some money, some of these taxes for the corporate world, and of course, to be demanding for the good service for the formation of people. You cannot survive only with the theory. And the theory, unfortunately, because the academic world needs to go and search the best things being done in the corporate world or whatever. The academic world needs to search what is the crisis, understand the crisis, and then come back to teach how to avoid that crisis. And who is the responsible for the crisis? Is the human capital installed. That human capital, once the crisis arrives, that human capital starts becoming obsolete. So you need a new human capital. How do you acquire that? So you have a lack here of formation of these people. So the corporate world, what he's doing in the Santander is exactly what almost all the corporate world is doing all over the world. So you get one student. I remember when I was HR director for Chase Manhattan, we used it to recruit an MBA guy in the United States. The guy would arrive here and start producing by moment as a corporate finance associate or something like that. Nowadays, you get an MBA and you need to train the MBA to prepare the MBA for your reality. So this is exactly what's happening. Why? Because the velocity of the crisis and the economic, the way it is connected and the chaotic the way it is, the innovation and everything is so fast. If you look around here, everything that's running here at this right moment is already obsolete. If it runs, it's obsolete. Someone has already invented something new. So this is what we're talking about. The human capital nowadays need to be connected with the whole world. So this is the most difficult point for us to run a business nowadays.
Exactly. And I'm very thankful also for the keyword, because you're talking about MBA. This is like the keyword for my transition then for our next topic. And Georgia, be prepared, you will answer something now. Now, as we have our international audience, we would like to talk about exactly us. So when we come to work to Brazil, you recognize maybe during my introduction, I introduced all of them by first last name, but now I call them Jorge, Marco, and so on. Like, this is one habit in Brazil. You call each other by first name. And maybe, Jorge, you can tell us a bit more about let's focus on management a bit. Like, what are the management habits here in Brazil, and why are they different, let's say, to Europe, Asia, North America? What are the most striking differences here?
I would say that, and there are some differences among the regions, but if you think about the large cities, São Paulo, I would say there are some aspects that people needs to understand when come to here. First of all, our organizational culture, it's quite different from US or European, although both are different as well. We tend to be much more open in a relationship in the working environment. We tend to be, and this is something that we perceive, people that comes from Europe, for instance. In Brazil, we tend actually to work, we have to have long hours. And there is...
Is that because you're always late?
It can be, or maybe we always late because we work a lot. Okay. No, but it is a reality. It's very hard here in Brazil. We see people, middle management or up, that it's actually able to work the regular 8 hours, and don't take some work to at home. And this is an aspect that is characteristic of our most of our environment. Another aspect is the need to actually be very, I'd say, sensible in terms, have the empathy and the sensibility in terms of how you connect with people. For instance, to talk about conflicting issues. The culture in Brazil is very tends to deny the conflict, tends to avoid the conflict. So, but at the same time, you have to face it. So there is an art, in managing in Brazil. That is, how can we actually, face this kind of things, without damaging the relationships? Because another thing that is very important here, people tend to prefer to work with people that they used to know, that they relate well. So it is not as, I would say, objective, the kind of a relationship in the working environment here that is in another place. This also is part of the, I would say, adaptability of the Brazilians, because we are able actually to connect with everyone, because we are able to have the flexibility, to deal with difficult situations.
Yeah.
But sometimes people that come from abroad doesn't have this perception, and sometimes creates some conflicts that damage the relationship, and after that it's very hard to create a good environment.
What you were
We try to help
different
the
thing, yeah.
people who come from outside.
so it's a welcoming culture.
Yeah, we are a welcome country. We like people. We like each other. It's very interesting. We are a miscegenated people. You look at me, I have here Indian blood, I have black blood, and I have European blood. This is what we have in Brazil. So we can deal very well with everybody who arrives here. We have no problem. You see? So this is the very good thing for someone who arrives here and try to make his life or her life here in Brazil.
There are some problems. I disagree a little bit, but there are some problems.
Very good.
Yeah, some problems because of our way to approach relationships. For example, very soft, and then we understand each other and that kind of thing. And for example, for Spanish people, or Dutch people, it's not so soft. They very straight. And here in Brazil, you're not so straight. So they don't understand what people from Europe sometimes don't understand why we are doing here, because you're straight with me, but you have a kind of a soft way to approach that, and then for Brazilians that sometimes they don't understand the straight people, the approach straight. Sometimes they feel kind of hard feelings about that, and oh, come on, the person is so aggressive, and it's like our relationship with Spanish people here in Brazil. They have to be straight, because the people in Spain, they don't understand if you're not straight. We say direct to the person, and here in Brazil you cannot do that. If you do that, it's a kind of, you can raise a conflict. So we are soft, but not so much.
No. But the idea is that you are tough if the person is tough. So if you are coming from outside, you need to adapt yourself to the local culture.
Yeah.
The same thing if I go to Germany, of course. Yeah. How is the German guys? This is something this is the first thing for you to adapt yourself to whatever place you go. What's the culture? Is that the culture I like? Okay, I like that. Okay, so I go there. So if you like Brazilian culture, for instance, okay, I like to play samba, and this is Brazil. Okay, Brazil is going to receive you with open arms. The same thing in the other countries. You go there, they are very tough. Yeah. They're tough too. If you are,
I just add one aspect from our, I would say, corporate culture. That is ambiguity. We have to be able to deal with a much higher level of ambiguity, in the work environment than, for instance, in U.S. or in some countries in Europe. The roles are not quite strictly defined. People is actually expected to perform, ahead of their responsibilities. Is expected they have a broader, set of responsibilities and engagement in other things that are not only specifically, defining their job descriptions. This is something that we value, and that is something that we practice, very currently. And sometimes for foreigners, they say, well, what this guy is doing, talking about this? This is my area. This is my role. And this is quite normal here, right?
So you need to help each
other. You have to talk a little bit.
You talk about the tasks and stuff.
Yeah, but if you spend a year here in Brazil, you're going to turn to be a Brazilian. It's different than
Is it
Europe.
positive or negative?
It's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. But in Europe, for example, if you come from Turkey in Netherlands, for example, even if your father is Turkish, but you're Dutch already, no, you'll never be a Dutch person. I think it's almost the same in Germany. I'm not sure, but I think it's almost the same thing. In Brazil, it's different. After 1 year, if you speak. No, it's not perfect Portuguese, but you will treat it as a Brazilian. It's a different thing for us here.
This is so wonderful.
Obviously.
I don't know if the professor agrees.
Interesting, but let me put some content here. First is we
Finally.
Some sauce
yes,
in this
yes.
salada.
But we Brazilians, we are a high context culture. And the Anglo-Saxons and most of the Europeans and part of the Asians, specifically the Indians, they are low context culture. This means that when I met Alfredo, I never ask straight questions that I am here to ask him. First I will ask, how are you doing? How was your weekend? How was your soccer team doing? We first talk about the context, and then we go to the content. And this makes the Anglo-Saxons specifically crazy, because they get nervous and you never go to the point. So this is the first one thing. The second thing that is very important is that the inner circle, the Brazilians, ourself and our professional self are very close. So let's suppose that Jorge Maluf tells me, Cabrera, you did a bad job. I said, you don't know my father. You don't know my family. How can you say that to me? Because he's offending me, not saying only that I did a good job, just that. So the inner circle of our psychology, it's very close. So don't tell a Brazilian that this was a big mistake. He said, well, you are offending me. No, I'm just saying that you made a mistake.
You need to improve a little bit, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So this is the third one. And there's one thing that it's very important. We do our very friend, but we recognize the effort. See, what the Brazilians does not support anymore, now that we have an international identity, now that they know that we are not Argentinians in the world, well, it's a progress. It's a progress.
Better in soccer,
yeah,
you know?
Yes, and they know that we are the 6th or the 5th economy in the world. Now that we do have identity, one thing that we cannot support, we cannot not support in English, cannot support in Portuguese, that is a different word, and then we have to avoid is the bring me your leader culture. You know, the guy that arrives here and start giving orders and start trying to teach us how to be Brazilians.
Okay.
This is what we cannot
Great.
really.
And let me say you something. Like, I did my internship here in 2008 without speaking a lot of Portuguese, but you know, basically, I think the only thing you need in Brazil is this. This finger, you can use for everything in Brazil. You want to access a supermarket before closing the door, you do this. You can access. You want to access a club, pass by the security guy here at FTV, you do this. So Fabian Cast, if you don't speak Portuguese, use your finger. It will help you a lot everywhere. If you're without this finger in Brazil, you cannot survive. You know.
May I correct you, Aiko? You must use your finger and your smile.
Okay.
If you use your finger, if you go to the security guy, sir, You will never open the door.
Okay.
No, it's not the finger, it's the smile.
All right. All right. Okay. And as we said, we use the finger with a smile. We then now move to 3 fingers with a
I
smile.
love this guy, he learns fast.
To our last topic, and I think we should do it like this for the last topic. The last topic was the future outlook on sustainability, sustainable growth together with human capital. Maybe we could do it like this. You tell us, like from your professional experience, what should be the next steps for corporations, but also maybe from the government. Does the government need to change something, and kind of closing statements from all of you? And maybe Alfredo, do you want to shoot?
Well, I have a lot of concerns with that.
Brief concerns.
Everybody's going to say, Alfredo, Brazil is living a wonderful moment. That's not that wonderful. I think that our economy is too much in the hands of the government. And whenever you have that, you are going to have some problem in the next 10 years. Write that, and then you can charge me a little bit later. Okay, Alfredo, nothing of that happened, but it's going to happen. So the idea is that the government cannot produce this. This must be produced by the private sector. So the economy in Brazil is in the hand of the government. When you talk about the BNDES, pension funds, you talk about Banco do Brasil, Caixa Econômica Federal, you put all these players together, you're going to see that 80% of the economy is in the hands of the government. It's not good. It was not good for Cuba. It was not good for Soviet Union and anyone, communist, etc. When you see the countries, okay, in Europe that are facing some problems, okay, they have the same thing. Okay, the government takes care of the economy. Instead of you have an economy from the market is responsible for making the economy to run. The government must be a kind of how to say guardian angel, a guard angel. If you have a crisis, you go there, fix the crisis, and then you come back to your place. We need politicians, but just to be politicians, they are not entrepreneurs. So whenever you have, so in the Brazil, unfortunately, we are walking toward this direction. If you look at our GDP, comparing our GDP with the Latin American countries, we are down there. If you look at the last 10 years, although we improved, of course that we improved. We brought a lot of people, okay, to the medium class. People are consuming, etc. We lend money for these people. But the model is already exalted. I think that we need to invent something new. What's going to happen? You are going to fix the crisis in Europe, no doubt about that. All the crises in the world, and we face crisis since we were born. If you come back to your childhood or something like that, we're going to say, well, I saw that crisis and another one. Crises come and go, and then comes another one, etc. United States, they are going to solve their problem too. And at that exact moment, we are being facing our crisis. Because we have no condition to compete against the products that arrive from outside. You go to New York and you buy this suit for $200 or something like that, and here you pay more than $1,000 for one suit, or whatever, everything. You get a pen, you pay much higher price here than in US. Why? Why our cost is so high? So this is something that you need to pay attention. If you do not do that, we're going to face a lot of problems. And this generation of entrepreneurs that we have nowadays in Brazil is a generation that comes from the 80s, when we used to have here high rates of inflation. We used to have here more than 30 different currencies, okay, in Brazil. So you need to work in hedging and everything. This is what I call a master degree in the hostile environment. These guys are ready for that. This is why we have so many multinational companies nowadays. You go to InBev and you see those guys. Those guys come from this generation, you see. What is the next generation? The next generation is you. So you need to prepare yourself.
Yeah.
How are you going to prepare yourself? I'm going to give you a very good example.
And then we go over to Marco.
The last debate in the United States with the president, the first question was made by a student. What's going to happen to me? I'm going to have my university degree and I have no job. Who? Oh, Who is the entity responsible for providing jobs for the student? The corporate world. It's not the government. It was
Okay,
not
Marco.
good in the past.
If Marco, for example, is providing jobs, so Marco, what is your idea then in the future? What does corporations do? What does government do?
I will get another dimension of this
All right.
thing. It's impossible to be a successful company here in Brazil if we now want to work together with the society and all the areas of society. So in my opinion, we need to work together. For example, we are trying to do that thing in Santander, for example, in Morro do Alemão, for example. We just opened a branch over there, but working together with this community. So I think somehow the way here is working together with the society, with the, for example, university together with the private sectors. If you have if you need people to work in banks, for example, let's work together with universities to identify and to have something in place there. Same thing for other communities. So in my opinion, you need to work together. And it cannot be something that I'm going to do alone, you know. Santander doing that thing only by Santander. It's just impossible. The thing is more complex than only one, you know.
So you're working, for example, together with Georgia.
Exactly. We are doing that thing right now. Actually, we are working with Brain about talking about our how to have more people, talented people working in a financial industry. So we are doing that thing right now. Actually, what I want to do today, you're going to launch a new site named www.workingbrazil.org. So this is something that we are doing together. So yeah, we need to be together, trying to identify solutions together. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed.
That's also your idea?
It is. I would actually put 3 pillars in terms of needs that we need to do. I think the first of all is related to education. I was from the last generation that was able to study in a public school, from the fundamental to the high school. And people who went to private schools at my time was people that was unable actually to be successful at public schools. Today the situation is completely different, right? Only people who is able to pay a good school is able to get a good education in this country, and this is killing for the country. Or we change the things and we will take another generation for doing this, or we won't be in any place. First thing is that. Second thing is to change the mindset of the public universities regarding the partnerships between university and public sector. There is a prejudice in our universities in getting close to the private sector. It's perceived that the private sector will drain the energy, the value from the university. So no, keep in your place, I'll keep you in mind. Brazil is one of the best producers in terms of academic papers, one of the last in terms of new patents. So there is a disconnect between our academic world and our I would say practical or real world in this country, and this probably addresses the point that Alfredo mentioned at the beginning. And the third one, we need to again open the country, right? I would say that the profile that we have today in this country was because in the beginning of last century we are open to different cultures, to different people, Germans, Japanese, Portuguese, Spaniards, Italians who came from all over the world to start a new life here. We mingled with them. Today we have a very interesting culture. We need to actually do this again, and maybe with a different mindset, and maybe having learning something from US, for instance, that was able to actually to attract the brains, to attract the talent. And if you see today, in American universities, Latin Americans, Chinese, Indians, there is a very multicultural environment. We don't see this here in Brazil. We need actually to do this. I would say these are the three things that we have actually to go. And unfortunately, Alfredo, this is in the hands of the government actually to promote
Exactly.
part of it.
This is
Right.
the problem that we need to
They are facing the right things, right? The right priorities. Yeah.
This is something very interesting because they are going to be stronger if they see that. It's so clear why United
Yeah.
States has a GDP, have a GDP of $15 trillion, $14.5 trillion, and you have $2 trillion. We have the same age, we have the same extension of the territory. Okay? Well, why? Because they use the private sector to make the economy.
Exactly, Alfredo. And by having said this, I think Professor Cabrera and I will now close together this debate. But still, Alfredo, I want to quote you because I think he said something very important. Whatever level you're going to work, wherever you work in Brazil, somewhere else in the world, he said, make yourself necessary.
Yes.
This is the most important thing. Wherever you come from, whatever education you have, make yourself necessary and be the nice guy, right? Thank you very much.